Good morning. I've cleared the storage on my phone, so hopefully this video not necessarily will last longer, but won't cut off dramatically at the end without me finishing my sentence. Beautiful day today. It really is nice. I'm in Swansea at the moment, and I've got a few clients that I'm going to be seeing in Pembrokeshire, in Whitland, on Friday, and yeah, it's been quite a busy week this week. Really, people seem to be coming for healings and wanting to kind of do a bit of work on themselves, which is great. Kind of prompted me to set this little or talk about how ultimately we create our own stories for our lives, and how our attachments to our story, whatever that might be, can sometimes disempower us and prevent us from moving forward and actually truly healing and fulfilling, our potential. Okay, so there's a lot of people that say, you're a limitless being, and you have all the potential in the universe to do whatever you want. And I suppose philosophically that's probably true, but you're in a body, right? Yeah, and you're subject to physical laws, right? Undoubtedly. So if you jump off a building, you ain't gonna fly. Right, unless you're in a helicopter or you're clinging onto a drone or something, you're going to go splat. So we are limitless in terms of our thought processes. Okay, so that's slightly different to the physicality that we have. So the thought process is the imagination, the inspiration that we have, or that we can generate, or at least connect to, is limitless. Okay, so ideas, creativity, all these kinds of things that come through us to then manifest in this physical realm, come from a limitless source. Okay, and you are that limitless source. The problem is at times being stuck in the physical and trying to navigate the vicissitudes of life is we develop a story. It's inevitable, right? Our life story, things that have happened to us, everything that we've done up to this point. And if for whatever reasons the story hasn't been so pleasant and has been very traumatic and very difficult and very challenging, in order to heal from that story, we have to at times come to a point where we stop identifying with it. And part of the work with shamanism is can be quite black and white. Okay, believe it or not, I'm not that interested in your story. All right, it's kind of interesting, right, to see what's happened and why things have manifested the way they have. But if, as a practitioner, I get too attached to your story, all right, and I empower your story, you're not going to get over your story. Okay, and if your story is holding you back, and if you're over-identified with the things that have happened to you that can't be changed in the past, then in many ways it's very difficult to help. Okay, it's very difficult to find a chink in that armor of attachment to be able to start to pull you out of that identification with it, which is holding you back. Okay, so part of the healing process when we do work is to go into potentially aspects of the story and feel what we need to feel that we haven't potentially processed from the past in order to fully release it, disidentify with it, say, well, actually it's a transient occurrence. Okay, everything in life is transient. Yeah, nothing's permanent. So, you know, the story is your story, but there's still a linear path of life that we walk through, and if we take too much with us moving forward, then maybe we don't fulfill that potentially infinite potential of creativity, inspiration, and joy that we can all tap into. So yeah, shit happens, right? Shit happens in life. There's lots of shit happening on a regular basis on this planet, and if you've ever been embroiled in it, if you've even created it, then it's there to teach you something. It's there to help you uncover aspects of yourself, or generate certain virtues within you that you may have been lacking. Okay, sometimes the most challenging situations, can really strengthen the psyche, strengthen the soul, if you choose to look at it like that. So if you're in a situation or part of your story has been very challenging, but you're very identified still with the role you've been playing, or what happened to you, so say you're still in this kind of victim mentality, then essentially that identification within that story you're going to bring forward into your future. So you're not actually going to heal from the patterns that may have perpetuated or perpetrated those challenges from the past. And by truly looking at how identified you are with the story that your life, all right, has generated for you, you can start to understand how deeply entrenched your psyche is, and your consciousness is bottled up in these thoughts and unhealed wounds that are really holding you back. So some people, maybe you're not quite ready to let go of your story, okay, and that's okay too. Yeah, it's like you kind of let go gently, right? But your identity, all right, your identification with this life is not really you, okay? The deeper essence within you isn't identified with what's happening and what has happened around you. And so at times, to learn to become less attached to our story so that we can move forward and create a new story from the experiences of the old story, create a new version of you, okay? We have to change our perspective, all right? We have to do work, right? We have to work on ourselves, and we have to raise our consciousness to look at maybe the bigger picture to start with. Because when you really raise your perspective, when you take your perspective up to get the bird's eye view of life, not just your story, but everyone's story, the whole planet, the solar system, the cosmos, the universe, you realize how, really quite small you are and your story is in terms of the universe, okay? And so immediately by raising your perspective, you can look at the infinite possibilities of what you can be, what you could be doing, by letting go of the attachment to the importance of your story. If we're over identified with our story, we actually subconsciously create self-importance around it. Okay, and if we over attach to the roles within our stories, then we don't leave any room for growth, expansion, and ultimately, talking not necessarily morbidly, we don't allow ourselves to embrace death, okay, the way we ought to embrace death, which is with curiosity and ultimately without fear. Because the only reason we tend to fear death, and it's not necessarily just mortal death, the death of the body, I'm talking more psychological death, the death of the death of the story, the death of your identification, the death of the ego that has been created around potentially a story, is that we get so entrenched and blinded by the story that we forget who we are, who we really are. And when you remember who you really are beyond the story, or even before the story happened, you can start to really come back to that truth. So I'm not going to bang on too much today about stories and whatnot, but maybe spend a little time contemplating where you're at in your life right now, and look at how your current situation is a reflection potentially of your past. Okay, how much of your past, how much identification with your victimhood, your self-pity, your self-entitlement, all right, are you bringing forward on a daily basis? Okay, instead of actually looking deeper at that, looking deeper at the subconscious patterning, okay, within the psychological framework of the soul, that essentially wants to cling on to those levels of consciousness for whatever reason, because of fear of letting it go. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example, right? And I'll use my mum as an example, and I love her dearly, okay, but she can be a bit neurotic, right? So every time I pick the phone up and have a little chat with my mum, I prepare myself for the tirade of ailments that she's become very identified with. And as much as I have some compassion for the fact that her body is getting old and she's suffering, she's become so identified with her ailments that it's become her life, it's become her, okay? And I try to, encourage her to, rather than focus on her tennis elbow, focus on what she can do. Like, you can still walk to the shops, she still does 10-15 minutes a day on her exercise bike in the house, she still does her gardening, so she still manages to keep moving and living a very fulfilling life. But the mind likes to identify with the story, and then the story eventually becomes, or the person actually descends so far into that story and that identification that they believe it is them, okay? And it's not. It's only the mind that's playing tricks on you like that. So, there's opportunities to pull yourselves out, okay? And the work is yours to do, right? But shamanic healing can help. Any type of healing, but shamanic healing can really help to go in deeply into that identification, and if you're ready, pull you out. It might require a bit of tough love occasionally, yeah, bit of boot camp, bit of rattling around, but if you're ready to kind of become a little less attached to your past and look to how you can create a new story, because you are the creator of your story, okay? Yes, we are influenced by environmental conditions and other people, but ultimately your mind, your your ability to respond and act within whatever the environment sometimes brings to you can still, so you still have some control and some say, some creative ability within the story. Okay. Another thing I've been encouraging my kids to understand when they're bored, right? My son at the moment has had his electronics taken away from him. And he's, I'm bored, I've got nothing to do, I'm going to stay in bed all day. I said, Harry, you know, you've got to learn to be bored in life. You know, life can be quite boring at times, and I've been doing all the time. And I'm trying to help him understand that through boredom comes stillness, and through stillness comes inspiration. And so start to re-tap into your imagination, come out of the video game and into this game, and then also into co-creating within this game. I fear my children, lots of children nowadays have lost the ability to play, lost the ability to imagine, because they're plugged in too much, plugged in all the time. And so they're very identified with their roles within their stories, which are the video games. And you can see how we trap ourselves so much in this stuff and not liberate ourselves, our souls and our consciousness from these transient bottles of nonsense at times that really hold us back. So, you know, even though you might be bored, even though you might be stuck in an identification of a story that serves you no purpose anymore, you have the creative power and ability to change it. And if you don't have the creative power and ability to change it, if for whatever reason you're stuck in something which you are trapped in for a period of time, then at least within that, create a story within it. You know, recreate yourself within the situation. Yeah? There's always something, there's always a way to play. Yeah, there's always a way to play in this game of life, no matter what's happening around you. And you've got to keep a sense of humour, you've got to have a lightness of spirit, and you've got to get out of a lot of this negative self-talk which holds you back. A lot of this negative self-talk, again, isn't you. It's not you. Alright? It's the mind, it's your parents talking at you, it's your teachers at school talking at you, it's everyone that's programmed you that you've accepted. Yeah? So to come back into your power, right, you have to start to recognize how and what agreements that you have made within your story. And if you don't like the agreements you've made, just cancel the freaking contract. Yeah, cancel the contract with the thoughts that keep popping into your head. Stalk the thoughts, stalk your minds, try to understand. And this takes effort, guys, right? This isn't, you know, a lot of people look for miracles. Yeah, they turn up, you know, sometimes to healings or workshops and whatever, and it's like, oh, click of a finger, I'm gonna be healed and making loads of money and you know, no. It takes effort. It takes work. And so, if you start the process, make a commitment to yourself to follow it through, because there's no point in starting otherwise. You know, if you're gonna run the race, or if you're gonna run and jump over a couple of hurdles, but then stop at the last few, you're not really fulfilling your potential. So everyone's got it in them to heal, to disidentify with a life that they might not be particularly happy with, and you know, make the best of a situation that they're in. You know, because like you say, sometimes life gives you lemons, right? Life often does give you lemons, and you can either get all bitter and twisted and chew on these lemons and feel a bit rancid and acidic about what life has given you, or you can crush them, squeeze them, add a little bit of sugar and make some lemonade and drink it. And it's just mindset. Okay, so if you're feeling a bit stuck, if you're feeling like, you know, you need a bit of clarity on how you could potentially move out of your story, move out of the attachment to your identification with your story to create something new for yourself, then by all means give me a call, and we could do some work together, which would be great. All right, see you next time.